Okay. Yeah. I think so.
Okay, good. Good morning, everyone, and I indeed thank you, the media, for attending this press conference this morning. This is indeed our fortnightly post-cabinet government press conference, where we take the opportunity to bring the public up to date with the ongoing business of government. And during this press conference, we will discuss several issues related to what was discussed in cabinet yesterday, as well as issues that are of national importance and issues that are aligned with our uh, government manifesto and our plans moving forward. The cabinet yesterday, the cabinet paper was presented that seek the approval of cabinet for the introduction of a national honors and awards program based on the National Honors and Award Ordinance, which makes provisions for the bestowal of honors and awards on Turks and Caicos Islanders for their significant contribution to nation building. Such awards will range from the status of national hero to that of meritorious service. The Cabinet approved for the formation of the National Honors and Awards Committee as provided for in the ordinance. And this committee will be responsible for the development of the regulations, rules, and procedures to govern the nomination of persons under the bestowal of awards. It is indeed the plan of my government to hold the first National Honors and Awards ceremony on National Heroes Day this year. The government views this program as a critical step towards improving national pride. Also presented to Cabinet, as we had stated in our manifesto, that we would seek to reinstate the Turks and Caicos Islands Investment Agency once elected into office. And so the government brought a paper to Cabinet that seek for the reestablishment of TC Invest, with its main mandate being that of investment, marketing, promotion, and the facilitation of foreign and local business development. The banking function previously performed by TC Invest is not being considered as part of the new agency. The cabinet paper was discussed and deferred for further development and the considerations such as marketing, new branding, financing, and revenue generation strategies to be incorporated as part of the agency's mandate. Also discussed in cabinet was issues concerning water sports in the Turks and Caicos and Belonging protection. My government presented a paper to cabinet that introduced the growing concern about the water sports industry in Turks and Caicos concerning the regulation of the industry and also belongers being sidelined in the industry as this industry grow with an increasing tourism market. That the Turks and Caicos being an increasing growing tourism market. So the government presented a paper to cabinet that saw the advice of cabinet for the commissioning of a stakeholder consultation group looking at the water sports industry and the views of the stakeholder in the industry to then inform the development of an ordinance and regulations of this vital industry to this country. We also discussed the issue of alternative to value-added tax. The government have been busy reviewing and modeling alternative to VAT that can result in the broadening of the taxation base and allowing for more predictable and stable revenue stream to government. One of the alternatives that the government was considering is that of property levy. However, after reviewing the land titles and distribution, it became quite obvious that land levy, in order for it to work, it would place undue hardship on a significant number of persons who cannot afford. Therefore, the government has removed land levy as a consideration as an alternative to VAT. The government is submitting to the governor and the FCO an alternative to VAT that will raise additional revenue required without placing undue hardship on the people. We are looking at widening land levy in order for it to work. We are looking at widening the accommodation tax base and increasing cruise ship passenger head tax combined with strengthening revenue collection efforts. These measures would allow for greater opportunity for economic growth, which would be the main driver of government's revenue stream. Also, in discussions, but not as part of the cabinet discussions yesterday, the government is looking at strategies to facilitate the development and support of small and medium-sized business enterprises, otherwise called SME. A consultation process is currently being conducted that is looking at the formation of a non-profit organization, collaboration with the private sector to support small and medium-sized enterprises. And this would indeed help to replace one of the functions that was previously conducted by the firm or by the former TC Invest in the small business section. Also, on the issue of energy, a comprehensive study to examine the viability of renewable energy and energy efficiency projects was commissioned in March 2011 to create a more sustainable energy framework for the TCI. The government will now embark on the adoption of an energy policy as well as a strategy for its feasible implementation to achieve the following objectives. To one, reduce electricity costs and prices as absolute priority. Also, while also improving energy security and increasing local and global environmental sustainability. Critical to the implementation of this policy is the reform of the electricity regulatory and legal frameworks. I am happy to say that discussions with the energy supplier Fortis has begun with the aim to encourage, promote, and allow access to the grid by consumers who will then have the ability to sell their excess energy generated by alternative means back to Fortis. We are aware of the challenges of implementing these technologies and are assessing possible pilot programs in the short term. The first course of action, however, is to embark on an aggressive energy efficiency and energy conservation program to reduce our energy demand. While the government has an obligation to create the environment, incentives, and awareness for all consumers to use energy more wisely, the onus will be on all concerned to make changes and to adopt this paradigm shift. The Turks and Caicos Islands are blessed with year-round sunshine, and it is time we endeavor to examine our options to first stabilize and eventually reduce energy costs and prices. Solar water heaters are the most viable small-scale renewable energy technology that can be implemented immediately, and my ministry, my government, will design a program to take advantage of this. The impact of the cost of energy on the cost of doing business in the livelihood of residents is of great concern to this government, and we are committed to collaborate with the power company and stakeholders to address this issue. I will now update the public on major infrastructure programs, many of which we have committed to in our manifesto. The causeway. The contractor mobilized late last year, commencing excavation for fill at a number of potential quarry sites. The contractor left the site in December for the Christmas holidays, and site meetings and visits have taken place this week between the Public Works Department and the contractor, and it is intended that the work will commence on the site during the next week. Although slight delays have occurred, it is envisioned that the works will be completed as programmed in June of this year. Asphalt patching commenced on the road adjacent to building materials. The contractors are awaiting delivery of the bitumen before moving on and patching the Palm Grove area in Grand Turk. And this is building materials in Grand Turk. Repair to the storm damaged Close Hall Road in Grand Turk is also held up until the contractor receives the bitumen material. It is understood that this will be delivered in time to recommence work on Monday, the 14th of December. Commence the work, which has commenced on Monday, the 14th of December. Work commenced today on the grading of the road near Bohio Hotel, and this will be followed by a grading of the road to the prison. The scope of work for asphalt patching of roads in Providenciales has been agreed, and the site meeting will be held today with a view of commencing the works immediately. The Eastern Robinson High School Administration Block. Here, the contractor has stripped most of the existing form work from the structure and steel, and so in this regard, a lot of work has begun to take place in looking at the progress in completing this most valuable project. And as one would know, that we as a government had recently passed motion in the House of Assembly to allow funds to be brought forward to this financial year to allow us to have these works completed in a timely manner. The government, so I also take this opportunity to give you an update on other issues within the Ministry of Health. You may be aware that there are certain issues with the Q Clinic in North Caicos. The Q Clinic over the past few months have been experiencing issues with infestation of ants. The Ministry of Health and Human Services have contracted the services of a pesticide company to treat the facilities. However, the situation seems to be escalating, and as a result of this issue, my government is seriously looking at the possibility of relocating the clinic immediately. We feel that this would be in the best interest of the residents of Q as well as medical staff of the Q Clinic. And this relocation will be within the community of Q. We're also looking at the strengthening of the primary health care by increasing the number of physician staff, nursing staff, in the re-establishment of the public health laboratory. Most of you may or may not be aware that there was a significant reduction in the number of physician staff, primary healthcare physician staff, throughout the islands that hampered the work of the primary healthcare program. And our government has made significant steps at employing recruiting of physician staff to increase the number of physicians, primary healthcare government physicians on the island of Providenciales to 3, and also in Grand Turks to 2, and to ensure that all of the other family islands are covered. And this will ensure that there are consistent and reliable visits to islands such as Saul Key, and to ensure that we can run proper public and primary healthcare programs on the island of Providenciales, especially given the increase in the number of incidences of communicable disease outbreaks. And in this vein, we will be looking at re-establishing the public health laboratory and recruiting additional staff and trained laboratory personnel to run this public health laboratory so that we can strengthen our communicable disease surveillance and so that we can have timely transfer and timely processing of the testing of various samples that are required during outbreaks of the nature of the neurovirus that we just took place here in Turks and Caicos. Also within the Ministry of Health, the government is also aggressively looking at trying to ensure that the audits of the hospitals are concluded. This audit was commenced and is in the process, and we are looking to ensure that it's concluded in a timely manner. Some more financial arrangements are being made to ensure that the company that is assigned to do the audit will complete this process before moving on to the so-called capitation of the hospital's contract as provided for within the contract. You can appreciate that this is a relatively new institution. This audit will once, however, put us in a better position once it's completed to disclose more information about the financial management and of the hospitals that the public will be advised of in due course. As a government, we are also looking at strengthening the National Health Insurance Board to address the concerns of the citizens of Turks and Caicos and the many issues that are being faced by the National Health Insurance Board and being faced by those persons who are beneficiaries of the National Health Insurance Plan. I would state that every government in the world is currently being faced with financial challenges as it relates to healthcare costs. Whilst the National Health Insurance Plan has been set up as a social scheme, we recognize that there are some gaps in the scheme, which we are currently seeking to address. The Ministry of Health, along with the National Health Insurance Board, is aggressively seeking to make the necessary amendments to the current National Health Insurance Board regulations to allow unemployed persons to voluntarily pay into the scheme, and those persons who are unemployed to ensure that they get coverage under the scheme even if they are unable to pay. It is hoped that these amendments will be presented to Cabinet within a few weeks. Also, whilst we recognize that the benefits of the scheme offered under the National Health Insurance Plan are extensive, the beneficiaries under the plan currently have health coverage ranging, of which there are many. And so I feel that it is critical that we mention that the contributions, that adjustment to the rates of contributions and adjusted rates do not sufficiently and completely support the cost of the benefits which are offered. And I also would like to note that there is no direct correlation between increased contribution rates and broader benefits being offered. So we will take all of this into consideration in making amendments to the regulations as to the contribution as well as benefits under the National Health Insurance Scheme. I'd also like to to note that the National Health Insurance Board will have very shortly a new chairman of the National Health Insurance Board to replace the current chairman who was acting after the previous chairman vacated the board, and an additional member of the National Health Insurance Board. And the persons who are being recommended is awaiting the various instruments of appointment. But I wish to state that these persons come with a significant background in financial management and can bring sound financial management to the National Health Insurance Board, which we of the view is of the most critical element to this National Health Insurance Board right now. The recent outbreak of norovirus, mainly affecting our school system, I can say has been under control through the efforts of the Ministry of Health in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. The schools have undergone deep cleaning and sanitization and are now all reopened. The ministry is continuing its surveillance of cases and is being proactive in their control and prevention measures. So they are doing their part. It is now for the community to do its part by practicing proper hygiene and hand washing that will reduce the transmission of such viruses now and in the future. I now move on to education. Our government, upon coming to office, was committed to ensuring several things. One, that we will hold a stakeholder consultation major symposium on education. I wish to state that a working group has already been established that will guide and plan for the stakeholder consultation, which will take place within the month of February, that will inform a new education policy going forward that is in line with the needs of the educational needs of this growing Turks and Caicos Islands. We also met with the challenge of the overcrowding of the Clement Howell High School. So my government has made arrangements for the recommendation of the staff of the Clement Howell High School and the Ministry of Education for the splitting up of the Clement Howell High School into upper and lower forms. And this will allow for the relocation of the lower forms of the Clement Howell High School to an alternate location so that you can have more manageable accommodation and safer environment and reduce social tension and stress within the school system. A location has already been identified, and steps are now underway to contract out and tender out this particular location or for the relocation of the Clement Howell High School. And so we would expect that it is our view that this will hopefully take place hopefully within the midterm of this school term. Also, on education, we are committed to building a new high school on the island of Providenciales. I must say that my government have already received several proposals, even in advance of us sending out a tender for the building and establishment of a high school in Providenciales. So my government will now, in the process of preparing the terms of reference and tender documents for a high school, and so that we could then entertain these many proposals that are coming to the table to see the establishment of a new high school in Providenciales, hopefully within this year or early in the next within the next year. The Unaglinton Primary School, which falls under education, as you know, was in need of rebuilding for some time, and my government has, during the last House of Assembly meeting, assisted with the motion being brought forward to bring forward some of the funding that can see work taking place on the Unaglinton Primary School so that we can have work started and completed in a timely manner. Also, with the change in the physical infrastructure, the design of the physical infrastructure of that particular school. Immigration and labor. The government has committed on assuming office to embarking on a skills audit of unemployed persons within the Turks and Caicos Islands so that we can have a better control over the employment of belongers and permanent residents in the Turks and Caicos Islands. I must state that the Ministry of Immigration, Border Control and Labor, also in collaboration with the Ministry of Education, are embarking on a skills audit and skills training program so that we can identify our various skill sets. And this is being done in collaboration with the Education Department because we see it very important for the employment of our youth and to ensure that there's a seamless transition of persons on scholarships returning to Turks and Caicos and getting into ready employment that is available, opportunities that are available in the employment market. And so our government is looking at the feasibility of establishing some aspects of the Labor Department, if not all of it, under the Ministry of Education. The Minister of Education will be attending a conference next week in Trinidad and Tobago that is looking at skills training unit, also looking at the aspect of having labor integrally involved in education department, as this is a system that they have and we want to see how it is working there in Trinidad and Tobago and what we can learn from their experiences. The Ministry of Immigration has been busy over the past few weeks combating illegal immigration. And this is illegal immigration through persons entering our shores illegally through the borders via sea on illegal sloops. The last time we had a press conference, we had an issue with the radar station. I can report that those issues have been completely resolved and the radar is functioning at 100%. And this has indeed assisted us in the early detection of sloops coming in. But the problem of detention and repatriation still remains. And the problem is the problem of the cost involved. And we are still seeking the assistance of the UK government to assist us in the design and build and also the repatriation, housing and repatriation of illegal immigrants. We are also working collaboratively with the Bahamas in the US in this regard in the control of legal immigration. We actually have a meeting with the OPBAT, which is Operation Bahamas, Turks and Caicos in the US, this afternoon after this press conference to discuss the program and to see how we can strengthen and foster greater ties and relationship in fighting illegal immigration via sea. However, as a government, we have committed to have a zero tolerance on illegal immigration, whether it's by means of sea, air, or by means of persons just simply working without the right to work and being illegal by that means. And so we will make every effort to ensure that such persons comply with the law and such persons are dealt with according to the law. We also will ensure that the Immigration Department, however, does its job in a timely and efficient manner to ensure that persons are not victims of the law because of our fault. Under immigration and labor as well, we will be looking at engaging in consultations with persons in the industry, and this is a paper that we'll probably take to cabinet and subsequent cabinets to look at forming a working group to look at considering strengthening our trade union ordinances and also looking at labor situations in Turks and Caicos and how this will impact and be beneficial to this industry here in Turks and Caicos to protect workers' rights. And so that is an issue, that's a burning issue throughout, and we will be looking at from the working group that will inform our existing trade union ordinance and to see how we can have that addressed. We'll also be looking at bringing to cabinet a paper that will be seeking to looking at the establishment of credit unions so that we can address some of the social situations and assist workers who participate in credit unions to improve their well-being and livelihood. So we can look forward to those, to bring in updates on those situations in subsequent press conferences. As a government, we have also committed to holding a major tourism and investment conference within the first 120 days of assuming office. I may say that this might have been ambitious, but nonetheless, we took on the challenge. But however, some of the challenges that we met are as follows. The current investment policy, which we operate under, is an investment policy that is developed by the interim administration. Whilst we are not at this point in time ready to state that is a policy that we do not agree with, but we have to ensure that this investment policy is aligned with our developmental priorities. And so we have commissioned a working group that will look at amending and revising our investment policy so that that investment policy can then be the foundation upon which we can then host an investment conference. Because in order for us to go to the market, to sell this market, the market needs to know what we're offering as Turks and Caicos. So we will be looking at postponing the investment conference for later in this year to be held possibly sometime in July or the summer of this year instead within the 120 days that we had first envisioned. But we would hope that this postponement is also due to our hopes that we can get TC Invest re-established, because TC Invest will be that agency that will help to organize and structure and market this destination. And so it will go without saying that it will be our hope to re-establish TC Invest before such conference takes place in a short while. The other areas that I would like to comment on is concerning the civil service. We are approaching a new budget cycle, and it is important that we have a civil service that is sufficiently staffed that can carry out our mandate in the areas of our priority. However, as mentioned before in the House of Assembly, we are very cognizant that there are a number of positions within the civil service, in our opinion, that may not necessarily, that Turks and Caicos Islanders may not necessarily be given the opportunities that they ought to be given to take up these positions. And so, as a government, we have to ensure that Turks and Caicos Islanders are given every opportunity to hold the various positions in the public service that are available to them. That they, because as a government, if we are to protect Turks and Caicos Islanders in the private sector, we have to start by protecting Turks and Caicos Islanders holding their positions in the public sector as a government. Even though the employment within the public sector does not fall under the remit of an elected government, but under that of the deputy governor in the governor's office, in the PSC, we will do everything within our powers to ensure that Turks and Caicos Islanders' interests are protected. So to this end, I have written to the governor and asked the governor for the appointment of a member to the Public Service Commission due to a recent vacancy within the Public Service Commission. And this appointment, I've asked for that I've recommended is under Section 81 2B of the Constitution, in which the governor can appoint a member on the advice of the Premier, so that that person can truly represent the interests of Turks and Caicos Islanders and the interests of the civil servants within the public service. I will await the governor's response to this recommendation for the appointment. But I can also state that it is indeed still the intention of this government to have the reinstatement of the 10% of civil servant salary in the month of February. It is still the intention of this government to, on the advice of the salaries review, with hopes that we can increase or make better benefits or better offers to civil servants based on the recommendations coming from the salary review that is about to conclude. So those are some of the areas that my government has been dealing with since assuming office. I'm sure there are many other areas that we have not touched on, but we will either touch on them in subsequent press conferences or during question time if they ask. Thank you very much, and I'm now opening the floor to questions.
That's a lot of information too. I'm just trying to think about how, just me as a media corps could even just effectively communicate all of this information, but thank you for it. I appreciate it.
You're busy.
Yeah. I'm curious about, just for clarification on some of the things that you mentioned, can you say in the case of, there's small business, small, medium-sized enterprises, I imagine. Are you talking about also financial support? When you're talking about that, are you talking about government guaranteed loans, that type of thing?
What we're looking at is some method, and what we have now is a consultation process. And the consultation process will result in the establishment of a nonprofit organization. As you know, one of the things that we can do as a government is to have through development orders and agreements, persons as part of the development model commit to supporting small businesses by donating to or transferring funds to such organizations. And also existing companies can support the small businesses by donating to these organizations. What you will find is that some companies may be more receptive to donating to nonprofit organizations designed for a specific purpose than for donating to government directly for such purposes. And so it is envisioned that that yes, that persons will be able to receive probably small business startup loans under such scheme. But whether or not finances will come from government as well, government will contribute some support, that is something that will be form part of the consultation and to a degree as well, yes.
Right. No, I was just gonna say that, these small businesses, they didn't need enough money. Do you believe you're gonna get the kind of financial support to give to the small businesses in a way that it really means something to them, so that they don't, still flop at the end of the day because they were undercapitalized?
And obviously, Mr. Financial Domain.
Basically, the SME facilitation organizational process will be done as a public sector effort. One of the reasons why we are focusing on, one of the reasons why we're focusing on a special process or program for SMEs, because the function of the new TC Invest would be promotion and to drive investment, to facilitate local investment as well. In the PNP manifesto, we spoke to, the PNP manifesto speaks to non-banking institutions. It also speaks to microcredits. We will be looking at various models that are operating with the support of the World Bank and the IFC, International Finance Corporation. There's a wealth of examples that we'll be looking at. It is difficult at this time to say whether funds will come from government. I think government will facilitate the operation of the program. But given the current financial restraints that we're forced to operate under, I doubt very much initially that there'll be any direct financial support. But as the Premier says, there are many non-financial incentives that could be given that would encourage and assist local participation in the economy of the islands, and that is what the focus is about.
With regards, in the matter of VAT, the other day the opposition issued a press release where they touched on VAT and the delay, and in their statement it seems that, I remember the last press release we talked about the past collaboration between this government and the opposition on this VAT alternative, and it seems in their press release that there wasn't any real collaboration or any real or any formal discussion with the opposition on the matter of delaying VAT. Can you talk to us about what's happening with that, how that was addressed in terms of the opposition?
A lot of thought went into where we are now, and as a government, clearly it is our job to establish a position that we could then take to the opposition and discuss and also get their buy-in and their input. I believe that process begun. The Premier has had ongoing conversations and meetings with the leader of the opposition. And so I did not hear that, the press conference or the comment you're referring to. But what I can say that we have indicated that we will seek full participation of the opposition, because we both, in our manifesto and in our public commitments, said that we would seek to have value-added tax either repealed or deferred. I think the opposition went as far to say they'll have it repealed. This government has continually said, or the party has said, that we would, in the first instance, would want to defer value-added tax, so that we can have a look at the alternatives. We've had an extensive look at the alternatives, and I am convinced that we have some very feasible uh, alternatives that, in my view, have the potential for generating significantly more than value-added tax would generate, and which is sustainable.
Okay, and just for clarification, because it was a specific direct question you asked with regards to that resiliency. Um, I've had informal talks with the leader of the opposition with regards to what we planned to do, um, and what was stated that one, we've asked for a delay in the implementation of VAT. Whilst asking for that delay in the implementation, we had selected, out of all of the alternatives that we had, the only alternative that really required a change in legislation and policy was that of property levy. And so what we wanted to do was look at the various resources in terms of land and availability and plots, etc., so that we could do an analysis to see whether or not, even though we are mentioning that, whether or not that is even feasible as a consideration. And our SPPU have done the analysis on it for us. And if it was, then we would have then brought that as an alternative to the leader of the opposition, the other side, and then to the general public as well, as an option for consideration for persons to discuss and debate, along with VAT, as an alternative to VAT. And that's why we're asking for the period of deferral of VAT. But there is no longer an option, so we did not have anything to bring to the opposition as yet for us to discuss as a meaningful alternative to VAT. The alternative that we brought right now is one that that would require at most maybe a policy change with regards to broadening of the accommodation tax base. And that, now that we have settled on that, we will be bringing that and any other alternatives like that to the opposition so that we could then sit and discuss for them to even improve on some of the suggestions that we are going to make. And we will have that. We will then take that and discuss that with other agencies such as the hotel groups, the Chamber of Commerce, the general public, and other stakeholder groups going forward. And that's how we intend to do it.
You mentioned cruise arrivals, and during the PNP symposium before the actual elections, I remember there was a point when we talked about cruise ship arrivals and the tax that Turks and Caicos government is supposed to be getting from cruise ship arrivals, and I believe that it was in the amount of millions of dollars we're supposed to have had. Can you give us some information on those funds, if they even still exist?
I think the funds that you're referring to were funds that were supposed to be once you exceeded a certain number of arrivals per person, then the carnival as a corporation was supposed to contribute X amount of dollars per head to the government, and the government is supposed to match that to be utilized for work improvements within the island of Grand Turk. And yes, we are looking at identifying various projects within the island of Grand Turk to which those funds can be used, because there are strict guidelines on as to how they can be used. So that is what you're referring to, that Grand Turk Improvement Fund. All right. Other than that, there is indeed scope for increasing with the collaboration and working with Carnival as well, for increasing the head tax to gain additional revenue that is outside of that fund that I'm referring to. So this is different revenue stream, and that in itself, with the arrivals now approaching 800,000, it can this particular year it could be a significant source of revenue generation.
In regards to that contract, it's so interesting that that's brought up, but I heard that that contract is in some kind of a sticky place as well, this carnival arrangement. Um, can you clarify if indeed this contract will allow the Turks and Caicos to begin to benefit more directly from these arrival numbers, or if indeed there was some arrangement deal document signed that gave Carnival a lifelong, ability to really not contribute to the Turks and Caicos as we might want or even envision.
I'm not quite sure we contribute in terms of I mean, would the government derive financially directly in terms of head tax, or contribution in terms of scope for persons to develop businesses around and the persons within the community to percolate within the community. I mean, there are many different ways in which you can get benefits. There are still a lot of opportunities for Turks and Caicos Islanders to develop medium and small businesses to service the cruise ship industry, and so that they themselves could benefit. There are lots of issues why taxi examiners have not take up all of the opportunities that are available. And as a government, we need to analyze those reasons and look at ways to try to ensure that that taxi examiners can take up those opportunities for businesses centered around cruise shipping.
But is
Okay,
there some
and
contention with this contract between Carnival and government?
no, not that I'm aware of with that. No, I know that when it was first envisioned that there is a certain set head tax that was there, and then a certain amount was drawn on before up to a number of years. So there's a limit to which you can increase it. And that's the contention you're probably referring to. There's a limit to which you can increase it because you already utilized some of the returns that you would have gotten over the years over the course of the contract. But there is some scope for increase still, even though we still have already drawn down on some of those
Make a point here. As a part of the incentive for Carnival prepaid something like $10 million to the government in order to improve the environment in Grand Turk. Those were prepayment of some of the head tax. As it stands at the moment, there is agreement by Carnival to increase the head tax by $2 per head additional. There's 742,990 passengers, Carnival passengers arriving in 2013, and there are new ships coming on. So the math is easy to work out. Also, by broadening the accommodation tax, I figure that if 10% of those people were to use the water sports in Grand Turk, it would significantly add to the amount of money that we can lift from Carnival, from the passengers. In addition to any other contributions that Carnival will make and have committed to make. I think you have to understand that this is a new government, and many of I think quite a number, I would say, of commercial entities did not feel like they were properly serviced or got the attention that they needed or deserved or during the interim administration for various reasons. I think an elected government has the incentive to deliver for the people. We are elected. We intend to drive this economy. We intend to improve and develop strong relationships with the private sector. We have met with Carnival, and that meeting was cordial. We have agreed to work together. To the best of my knowledge and to the best of our knowledge, there's really no contentious issues with them. Obviously, there are conditions in every agreement on both sides, and and we will have to discover what those conditions are as we go along and make sure that they live up to them as well as we do. Um, but I think based on the initiatives that we've undertaken to broaden the accommodation tax base, we will raise significant amount of money from the likes of Carnival.
With regards to Fortis and solar energy, a few months back we spoke with a tax expert who also told us that he did his research on Fortis in Canada and Fortis in TCI, and he said that the difference between Fortis in Canada is that they allowed their customers to provide themselves with solar energy, but here in the TCI, apparently you can't have Fortis and have solar energy at the same time. Is that going to change?
No, that is absolutely false, and I wish you take this opportunity
Yes,
because this
can you
is
address it? Yes,
because this is
that's a rumor.
what we're going to be encouraging. In our meeting with Fortis the other day, we told them that as a government, our energy policy that we're seeking to implement will have the following, because they have a lot to, education is a big part of it as well. First of all, we would be looking at reducing energy demand or being more energy efficient, the population. And so purchasing equipment and appliances that are energy efficient to conserve energy, and so your light bill won't be so high. Water heaters that are better, refrigerators that are better, etc. All right, and hope that and make sure that as a government policy that there's significant tariff reduction or zero rated tariffs on all of those appliances and things that we to encourage you to buy them instead of the high ones. We also need to show look at the design of homes and houses to make them more energy efficient, because a lot of energy sometimes is wasted in how a house is designed, and so we need to encourage that and give incentives for persons for designing homes that are energy efficient. Our current legislation allow for the residential and commercial generation of alternative energy, solar and wind. There's no prohibition whatsoever. So any taxi examiner can go and purchase your solar system and make yourself completely independent of Fortis electricity on your solar system if necessary. If that's a system that you design for yourself. The only issue here is that the legislation currently does not provide for you selling back to the grid, because in most modern systems you are allowed to generate enough, and sometimes when you generate electricity via these alternative energy systems, solar and wind, you generate more than you need. And when you generate more than you need, or you generate more than you need during a particular time of the day, then it can then go back to the grid system for Fortis to use and redistribute to other persons who don't have or who need more. And so you can then sell back to the grid. And so you either get, in doing that, you either get a check at the end of the month for generating your own power, or you get a credit. I mean, you reduce your bill. And so that is what we're looking for right now as a step, as a first step towards alternative energy. So we would be encouraging, because this in itself is a business that Turks and Caicos Islanders have not capitalized on as a business in getting solar energy equipment, and to encourage Turks and Caicos Islanders to invest in it and have it installed. And so this is a big business that is creating opportunity that Turks and Caicos Islanders can be a part of. So I would like to let them know that that is what we are seeking and that is what is coming.
For those who may not be able to tap into solar energy, when it comes to just reducing the price of electricity, period, what was Fortis's response to that? Would that be feasible in the near future? Because we're always hearing the rumor of costing too much to provide us with the electricity. That's why it's costing.
No, well, one of the challenges that and one of the factors involved in the high cost of electricity as well is the method by which fuel is delivered to Turks and Caicos. The different stops and routes, and so it becomes expensive. And so the high cost of fuel. So in addition to looking at all of those alternative sources of energy, we need to look at the methods and route. And so that's why the installation or the creation of a deep water harbor that are allowing larger ships and allowing larger storage capacity of fuel for a longer time period is one of the initiatives that can help to reduce the cost of electricity. And that's why, as a government, we are so keen on establishing Deepwater Harbor port here in Turks and Caicos that will allow for that reduction in the overall cost of energy. Um, but they are quite receptive to reducing the cost of energy in Turks and Caicos. However, when it comes to the commercial generation of of um, of alternative energy, those are some issues that we have to look at collaboratively as a electricity provider, as a government, and also as those persons who are interested in the industry to look at the overall benefit and or to also look at the unintended consequences of doing so. In line with the electricity policy, also in line with the electricity legislation, to which Fortis to which gives Fortis the right to supply us with electricity.
With NHIP, you as a former chairman of the NHIP board and a medical director for the Turks and Caicos Islands, what are some of these concerns that now as premier that you want to address with NHIP going forward?
Right. But first of all, I was never former chairman of NHIP. I was an ex officio director by virtue of my position as chief medical officer of the NHIP. And some of the things that we're looking for the change going forward, as I'd stated even before coming into office, one, we're looking at taking the legislation to amend the regulations to allow persons who are unemployed beyond 90 days, persons who are unemployed, period, that'll be on 90 days or what, to benefit from the various benefit packages of NHIP. Because currently what happens is that once you unemployed after 90 days, you're not covered under any of the categories. And so you fall through the crack. And as a social health insurance scheme, that's unacceptable. Because the social health insurance scheme is put in place to protect the vulnerable. Okay? The National Health Insurance Board or plan is not meant to be, or is a social health insurance plan, and as such, the government is responsible for funding it in addition to the beneficiaries. But the beneficiaries are not responsible for fully funding the National Health Insurance Board. And we forever, each time we have economic hardship, try to look to the people to continually fund it, and that's not right. And so we need to have that balance to make sure that it's a scheme, yes, that you have fiscal prudence. It can provide the benefit, the health benefit packages as provided for, and wherever shortfalls there are, the government is able to meet those shortfalls through other means of revenue generation and funding of the scheme. And some of the other regulations that we're hoping to look at is how we can have better control over the procurement, distribution, and sale of pharmaceuticals, which is a high cost item as part of the benefits package, and to make sure that it's readily available for those persons, especially those who are unemployed and the elderly and those who cannot afford, and children. As I said before, there are three groups which we are very critical of that falls on the government's remit as part of the social health insurance scheme. One, the unemployed. Two, persons who are children. And three, persons who are senior citizens and who have paid their dues to this country. And so we have to make sure that those persons have the full benefits to health as part of as a social health insurance scheme.
Talking about falling through the cracks as a follow-up to that last question, we have instances where people, several instances where you may have someone who's been on work permit, say 4 or 5 years, and they're in the process of renewing their work permit, and they may need certain medical care, but NHIP cannot cover it because their work permit is not renewed. And then you have persons who may not reach the eligible senior citizens age where they would be covered under the government, say they're 61 or 62, and NHIP, they can't get the full coverage from NHIP or any coverage because of that. How do you address those people?
No, those persons, once you're a Turks and Caicos Islander, First of all, let's do Turks examiners first. Once you Turks examiner, you must fall under one category. You should not fall through the crack. You are legally resident Turks examiner. You must fall under one category, and that is what we need to look at to ensure that persons. So either when you fall under those categories, you either a person who need to fall under the category and you have to make a contribution, or you fall under the category and government is responsible for making your contributions. With regards to the senior citizen person, depending on their status, they ones the government will probably be responsible for making their contribution, depending on their status. I didn't get the full point, but if they're elderly, senior, government's responsible for making the contribution.
Well, you have people
Um,
who, if I can clarify, did a story actually on several people who, they were, say, in a position where they wouldn't qualify for,
The non-contributory old age pension, yeah,
but they can't work, so don't have any money to pay into NHIP or any money to.
yeah, they can't work by virtue of them being
say,
of
an
health.
injury or
Yeah,
whatever
so
it may be.
those persons, and there's a procedure for that. And those persons, once you can't work, and we're looking at that part of the legislation as well, of the regulations to ensure that there's a procedure to which you go. Because right now, the persons who can't work, then they would have gotten invalidity certification from NIB, which is the organization that certifies to their medical board that you can't work. Once you get that, then and you fall within that category, then NHIP should then use that as the basis as proof. And that, but what you find is that a lot of individuals will say, "Oh, I can't work because of health," but still have not gone through the process, and sometimes because they don't know, have not gone through the process to certify themselves as an invalid, and hence they will fall through the cracks. So we need to put strict, clear guidelines as to the process and to avoid persons falling through the cracks because of their own ignorance.
NHIP, are you
And the other person, to answer the other part of her question, the one with regards to person on work permit. If you are on work permit and your work permit is denied and you're not renewed, then you're not eligible for any benefits. You shouldn't be here. You are then doing illegal. But I know of certain situations where individuals who were on work permit and their work permit takes forever to play, and it's the process, and then they are denied treatment. Now that we need to look at, and I don't agree with that. But that is the reason why work permits should be submitted for renewal, should be submitted in a timely manner, and the response should come back in a timely manner. So by the time your work permit expires, you already know your status, whether or not you get a renewal or not. And so you should not have that gap period whereby your status in this country is unknown.
Are you saying, Dr. Ewing, that NHIP is going to cost us more soon and we're not going to get more benefits?
No, where did you hear that?
You said adjustment to rates is not enough.
What we're saying, what we're saying, there's no correlation between the rates of contribution and the benefits that you get, because the benefits that you get far exceed anything that you can contribute to the rates. So you can't keep on adjusting rates to try to say that you're gonna try to match it to meet your contribution, because you can't do that. You'll forever be increasing rate. And so we're mindful of that. And so it is not our intention to increase rates to match benefits. And as far as I'm concerned, most of the benefits that are being offered right now, reasonable benefits package is a very comprehensive one, but it's a reasonable one. But if we will relook at the benefits package, and if there's anything that we consider discretionary or unreasonable, yes, we will probably take the opportunity to reduce them. All right, because especially if they're being abused. But that is not the intention going in. We need to review that part.
Can you say how much money was approved in the House for the road works? How much was it? For the sorry, maybe it was speaking to the school, maybe to Anna Clinton.
Oh, you mean the addition?
Yeah, I think the total budget for the UNA Clinton Primary School is, I think the total is $1.8 million.
Anna Clinton alone.
and
For the new block.
and for the H.J. Robinson School, I believe it's 1.2.
That was approved? Yeah.
It was that's the total
That's the
budget.
total.
What was actually approved was less than that because there was a budget already. But what actually happened, we had to increase the amount that was originally allocated. So the paper that went to the House was really to seek an increase of the original budget, of or more like actually it's in I think it was supplementary to also allowed us to bring some of the expenditure into the current year, right? Because whatever is allocated for this year, if it is being spent because the contract was issued already, in order for the contract to continue, we would need House approval to bring 2013 expenditure on that particular contract into 2012.
Budget.
So there were both increases in expenditures, but more importantly, the amount that was approved for the current financial year were amounts that were brought forward because the contracts were let and the contractors were progressing with the work and the funds needed to be spent in this year in order to continue the work.
So just for further clarification, how much money are we talking about was actually approved?
Well, the two projects in total value, I think, was something close to four. I think the actual amount was close to $4 million. I don't remember.
That's the total.
I think
To do both.
I think the total amount of money that we approved came up to $4.6 million, of which
Included the vehicles.
$800,000 related to police vehicles, which technic, and I think there were 500 and something $1,000 which was approved for the construction of a building to house the RO plant, the reverse osmosis plant. The $800,000 for the vehicles came from what is called the National Forfeiture Fund, which is monies that would have come from things like SITT prosecutions, which is actually the portions that were spent had to be transferred to the consolidated fund and taken out again because National Forfeiture Fund is not part of the consolidated fund. I don't know if you understand all of that.
So,
Yeah.
and as far as back on the health, just for clarification again, Dr. Lucas, you mentioned that we lost some healthcare providers I guess during the interim administration time, there was a reduction in actually workers. So I guess my question is, can we afford to bring people on? How expensive does your administration see this being? I mean, you obviously
I
think
mean,
it's necessary.
there is a priorities, and what I wanted to say that we will have to work within we're going into budget preparations soon, and we'll have to work within our envelope. And so areas that are priority to us, if we can't, if we're seeing that we're going to go beyond our envelope, then we have to reduce in areas that are non-priority. We have to find cost savings in areas that are non-priority, but in areas that are priority. And so that's the rule book which we were issued and dish to play with. So we will try and play with it.
Can I make a point here though? Because we tend to look at things as a zero-sum game here, and in fact, what is happening? There are a number of projects that we see coming on stream in 2013, which would require a significant number of new employees, specifically in the construction industry. West Caicos, the restarting of the West Caicos project, the two hotels that are being developed by the Deseralis Group out of Venezuela, the turtle development, And then in South Caicos, we've got the East Bay Hotel, which is 80% finished. Coming on, hopefully we can facilitate them and having that open in 2013. There's 150 room plans for Grand Turk for the White Sands Hotel. And then there's another project for North Creek. And then there are others that I have not mentioned. So basically, when NHIP, when the hospitals were conceived of, it was based on a growing economy. And now that we see the possibility, despite the threat of continued slowdown, we see the possibility for the Turks and Caicos of an uptick in economic growth. And what has to happen with NHIP? We have to encourage high-paying jobs so that the contribution to NHIP from those jobs are significantly higher than they are now. But if we attract high-paying jobs, the contribution by those high-paying jobs will subsidize the contribution by the ones that are low-paying. You know, the minimum wage people could never contribute sufficient, as Dr. Ewing said, to balance the benefits. But I think if we have a significant number of high-paying jobs, we can balance the benefits with the commitment that government must continue to make to pay for indigents and also persons who they are obliged, other persons, categories of persons who the government has to pay for. So I think with economic growth in a few years, I think this whole concern hopefully will be behind that.
Just a quick question on the RO plant, Salty. It's been a while now since we learned that they were having water shortage issues in Salty, and I understand I just recently, yesterday, received an email that there has been nothing done on the island of Salty since we learned of that water shortage issue. Can you let us know how soon that will be rectified?
Well, I must state that there is not a water shortage. It's a threat of a water shortage because of two problems. One, a major crack in the major catchment tank, there is so-called the reserve tank, that results in a lot of leakage of water, and so there's only reserve that can take you for a certain time period. Then there is a reverse osmosis plant that is outdated and require lots of maintenance and up and down, and so it had inefficient supply of water. Two things. One, we have allocated earmark monies and have put out a contract to have the major crack in the tank repaired, fixed, and that, George, I don't really give an update on when that's going to happen. It's that right? But that should be happening shortly. Then, two, with the fixing of the reverse osmosis plant in Grand Turk, we'll have an additional reverse osmosis plant, and that one in the interim will be transferred from Grand Turk, will be transferred to Salt Key to be utilized while we make provisions for purchase of a new plant for Salt Key, which may or may not be in this financial year. All right.
Having surpassed the first 100 days in office, what has been achievements that you're doing?
I think yesterday was the 9th, and I think we were on 60.
Yeah.
But anyway. Yeah, halfway. In halfway mark, yes.
After the first 100 days.
Yeah.
What has been achievements?
I thought I just outlined most of them. I thought I just outlined most of them. Well, as you would imagine, when you look at 120 days in office and what needs to happen, it doesn't mean that everything you start will get completed within 120 days. But you need to have made significant progress in some of the initiatives. Some of the initiatives that we have stated that we will work on immediately within 120 days in office is one, the Unaglinton Primary School. the H.A. Robinson High School, and all of those we are well advanced in getting them on the way through the actions that we've already made. Two, addressing the school overcrowding and shortage situation at Clement Howell High School. We're actually ahead of the game in that regard in terms of dealing with it. And we're ahead of the game simply because of the urgent nature of the recent issues that happened at Clement Howell and force our hands to actually put brought that forward as a program item. And so we actually ahead of the game in putting forward the Clement Howell High School and splitting the forms up to allow to decrease the overcrowding and allow for a safer conduct of school activities. We've also looked at the issues of we are further ahead in planning for the building of a new high school. We were probably thinking on putting the new high school in the building in year 2, well financially, but that is coming forward himself hopefully within this year. We're looking to working towards that. We on the health situation, we stated that we would look at the clinical and financial audit of the hospital. We in advance we're well on the way with that. From the financial audit aspect, we now have to embark on the clinical audit. In the next paper to cabinet, we'll be looking at the reestablishment of the Clinical Services Review Board, which will be the entity that will help select in collaboration with PAHO the person to come and do the clinical audit of the hospital, and so that we can make a number of decisions with regards to one, the capitation as provided from the contract, decisions on whether or not the penalties that they might have to incur under the contract, and to see how much TCIG have to derive financially because of those penalties, and to have an informed decision on how we're gonna negotiate or renegotiate or refinance the terms of the contract going forward. So we are on track with what we're doing in that regard, and we also will be appointing the TCIG rep. But some of the challenges that we find in doing some of these things is that if you're going to recruit persons in government, you have to go to the government recruitment process, which can take some time. And if you're going to appoint somebody as a consultant, you have to go to the government procurement process, which the procurement ordinance is very complex and takes time. So those are some of the challenges, but those will be coming within the next few weeks. Also, with regards to the NHIB, not that the board, as it stands now, does not have the capacity. They've been doing their best, and they now have the support of an elected government to carry through their legislative agenda. But in addition to that, we think that the new appointments to the board brings to the board significant financial strength to the board to deal, because we see most of the challenges of the board as not really health challenges. They're more financial challenges and financial management challenges. And so that is what we will bring to the board with the appointment of those two individuals. And they would also help to have better insight into the financial relationships between the NHIB and the hospital. And that's what we want to dive into with the appointment.
What do they do? They're locals?
Oh, yes.
What's in the box?
Could you say where this
You say what?
the other location is going to be, where you're going to divide the lower grades from the upper grades?
Not yet.
No, I can't.
Is it the community college?
No comment on
No,
that.
no,
We're
no.
still working with the
No comment on that, because I think we have gone ahead and identified one spot, but because of our procurement ordinance, we need to give the opportunity for other persons to right?
Yes.
To opportunities for other persons to tender. You just can't identify. You just can't see something and go after it these days. You have to see something and say, okay, that's fine. but I have to invite other persons to now do a bit. Yeah. We don't want to prejudice anybody by stating the name of the possibilities. All right.
You mentioned a new school and Providence.
Yes.
Is the movement of the curriculum, let's go, separation of some grades, it's going to be a short-term basis or a long-term?
On short-term basis.
What time frame?
So the time it takes to develop a new school.
Yeah.
Those interests that you spoke about in the new school, are those financial interests or are construction interests?
Bit of both.
Bit of both.
And do you know which area you plan to construct this new?
We're looking at 3 different areas right now.
In terms of teachers being brought in, obviously the overcrowding of Clinton House is only structural, but
Okay.
the fact that there are too many students in one class, are there going to be more teachers brought in to probably downsize those classrooms, even though we're splitting upper level from lower level?
We have to look at bringing in more teachers in general anyway, but that new teachers being brought in will come in with the new budget, with the new budget cycle, which is due in April. But we may have to invest in more even when splitting them, because you're splitting the schools, then you can't really utilize, because some teachers may have duplicate responsibility, so you may have to actually duplicate teachers to facilitate that as well. So yes.
Would you like to
Right.
comment on the possibility of a by-election?
And the possibility of a by-election, I mean, if
It may happen, it may not.
Yeah,
Possibility.
the possibility of by-election may happen, it may not. I don't know what's in the judge's mind. Maybe they don't know what's in their mind.
Have you
So,
started campaigning as a party?
No. We are just here and doing the people's business and moving forward. When the judge decided to make the decision on which direction it goes, whether in the right direction or full speed ahead, we will. But in the meantime, we will continue to do the country's work and the country's business. And when the time comes, the decision is made, we will have ourselves in gear to do what we need to do. So I thank you very much for attending the press conference, and it's a pleasure. And I'll let you see you at the next one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh.